Welcome back to the SG Weekly Talk Show. Mike Callan here, your host, with Matt Green of Blue Duck Lawn Care and Pest Control out of Indianapolis, Indiana. Matt not only owns Blue Duck Lawn Care and Pest Control, but is the owner of Indy's Christmas Light Pros. So want to welcome Matt to the show here as well. Been wanting to get him on for a while, but with his compressed schedule, we have not been able to get him on. But Matt, welcome to the show. I know a lot of people in the Service Autopilot ecosystem, as well as just on a national level, lawn care and now holiday lights, are well aware of who you are, especially running around with Martha Woodward in the QDS circuit, the cleaning industry as well. So people haven't heard of you. Definitely introduce yourself and kind of give us a background of how you cut your teeth in not only the lawn care industry, but now the new endeavor into Christmas lights as well in the last couple of years.
Yeah, so thanks for having me on. When we started this whole thing, it started when I was 9 years old, essentially. We were like super, super broke, and we were just trying to figure out how are we going to keep our lights on? How are we going to keep the water on at our house? Like there was periods of time when we didn't have either one of those. And so that's when it started. And then I went to college, and the lawn mowing thing kind of went by the wayside. And this is a very compressed story of how we all started, but that kind of went to the wayside. I went to college, graduated. I have 2 college degrees, went and worked in corporate America, worked for Xerox as an account manager selling software and copy machines, literally door to door, business to business. I mean, it was business to business, but it was all door to door, knocking doors. They would send us to these big office buildings, and they're like, hey, you got 100 opportunities today. Knock on every single office in there and sell them something. That was how I started in the sales space. Had fantastic sales training, except their strategy of getting clients was very poor. And then I hated my manager at the time. Like me and him did not see, our values did not align. And I said, you know what, why don't we go back and do what I knew originally? And that was lawn mowing. And so I told my wife, I said, let's move back. We were living in Ohio at the time. So let's move back and let's see if we can do this whole thing in Indiana where I already knew people in Indianapolis. And let's see what we can do with this. It was just a hope and a dream. And so we moved back. I had $1,800 to start this company. And I bought a trailer and a rickety lawnmower. I think I have still nerve damage in my arms from how bad this Exmark vibrated. Just like it was the first walk behind I ever used, so I thought that was normal. And so I used that thing for like 8 months. Then when I actually tried a new one, I was like, this is what it's supposed to feel like nice and clean and not vibrating. It was insane. But as we went, we grew. This is our 8th season in business now. We've hit the $1 million mark. We did that in our 6th season. So in 6 years, we went from literally starting the business with $1,800, $0 in revenue to $1 million. We did that in 6 years. And then right around there, I had this epiphany. I don't know what sparked it, but I wanted to pay our team better. I wanted to give them better benefits and actually give them a career path. Because we were having this turnover, and turnover sucks, And so you'll have to train people, and then the quality goes down while you're training them, and then churn happens. And I was like, how about we just keep the people that we got? So to do that, we have to pay better. Got to pay the top of the industry. We got to give them benefits, and we have to give them somewhat of a career path where they can see their vision going in the future. So of that, at that time, we kind of talked about this a little off air of how many, when you guys start coaching people, is how many services they have at the beginning. And I had a guy that's very low. He's a local guy here. And I saw him as a mentor at this time. And he said, Matt, if you actually want to be somebody special, he said, pick 3 services max, and go full blast into those. He goes, I want you to write down every single service you do right now, and then figure out how you're going to get that down to 3 if you actually want to do something significant. And at that time, I think I had 18 different services. And he said, okay, so write all these services down, put how much money you make from each one of them and how much of a distraction it is. Because most of those that you might make $5,000 to $10,000 a year on, guess who has to be there? You do, because you're the only one who knows how to do that job. So when you sell that thing, now you're pulled back into the field. You can't run your business anymore. And so we pulled it back. We got down to 3 services, and to pay the best, we decided we were going to do fertilization, weed control, and all the services surrounding that. We do pest control, interior, exterior, everything that surrounds that. And then to solve seasonality, we moved into Christmas lights. Those are the only, I mean, of those, you have different services within them, but those are the 3 cores that we do. And that's all that we do. And once we streamlined, it was kind of rocky, but now we're on this, we know where we're going, and we're on the path to success again.
Wow, out the gate, got to congratulate you. A lot of folks, hopefully you've taken the time to at least celebrate with yourself, the family, and hopefully the team breaking that $1 million mark. Because a lot of us are looking at it. We cross that line and we're like, what's next? We're going to go to $1.5 million or 2 million. So, I just want to take a minute and congratulate you, because obviously being in the top probably 3 to 5% of not only the lawn care companies, the whole United States, but all small businesses. A huge, huge feat, Matt, knowing you, and kind of crazy. Didn't realize you worked for Xerox in the past life. Right down Ra-Cha-Cha here, where Xerox corporate headquarters
right down
is based. So kind of a dying machine over there, but probably a good place to cut your teeth in sales and understand probably what to do and definitely what not to do. So I definitely appreciate that. And the insight there of those simple services has been really interesting to me, looking at those. So as you hit on those, you had your fertilization and weed control, pest control. Tied within that, you had some mosquitoes, aeration, overseeding / slice seeding, and some other programs there. When you talked to that mentor, the coach you were talking to, what was the thought going through your head when the gentleman or lady said, "Hey, Matt, if you want to make a mark in this and actually get a go at it," what was your thought? Was there any pushback? You're like, I'm just going to go for it? Because I know when we work with hundreds of coaches or hundreds of clients each year at Simple Growth, our 3rd step of the 6 we teach is literally create a simple business. And I think a lot of times the business owner panics and they're like, how am I going to survive? So I was kind of curious, what was your thought process and in the emotional roller coaster, if there was, around that?
Yeah, I mean, you have to dump a lot of money. And so let's be honest, at that point, I knew kind of what I was doing, but we hadn't hit the $1 million mark at that time. We were still a lot smaller. I had coaches, but I didn't have a budget. So like cutting some of these services out, I had no idea what ramifications it was, but I know one thing, that I'm a hustler and I'm going to make it work no matter what happens. Like, I think as entrepreneurs, we always, that's a gift and a curse at the same time. Like, we're not scared of risk because we know we can make it work. We can figure it out. When most people will stop, we won't stop. Like, maybe that's just us being really bullheaded. I don't know, but like, there's that thing in you that like, I think all good entrepreneurs have, is like, they got that dog in them, like that never stop fighting kind of mentality. And sometimes that means that you're going to take risks that are probably not the smartest. And at that time, like, I didn't know any better. And what he told me was, it made total sense, but it was like, man, we're going to have to drop all this revenue. And so I was like, we got all this equipment that we no longer will need. We got trucks we'll no longer need. We have guys that we're going to have to fire because we know we're not going to need them anymore. So it was a tough decision, but I knew that if we wanted to get really good at a couple things, that's the only way that we could survive and really make a difference. Is when a customer answers the phone, like, now the people talking to them, they only have to learn a couple of things. They don't have to learn all these different services. They only have to learn, and because we do fertilization, pest control, and Christmas lights, those sales seasons are totally different times. So during fertilization season, we talk to them a lot about fertilization, and you talk about one thing. Then in the summertime becomes pest control time. So then you know how to talk about that. And then during Christmas light season, you're not getting fertilization and pest control calls during Christmas light season. So you can train them to talk a certain way and only have to know one thing. And so it makes the business simpler. So then when you don't have to think about all this, you don't have all this waste in the business. You don't have to go buy equipment that's going to sit there for most of the time, and you just need it for those handful of jobs throughout the year. And most people in our industry, as you probably know, they might need a dingo or something like that for a landscape job. It makes it convenient for them, but they don't really use it enough to really make them buy it. they should rent it when they need it, but those people make bad decisions. They go buy these things. Like right now, we could use a forklift. Sure, like everything that we do is on a pallet. It would be super easy to move, but it would sit there 90% of the time doing absolutely nothing. So it doesn't make any sense for us to have one. And so those were kind of some of those thoughts of like, you know, the asset utilization. Does it make sense to have all this stuff when we're not really using it? So yeah, it was definitely kind of scary at first, but I'm the kind of guy, once I drink the Kool-Aid, I'm cold turkey and I'm 100%. When I decided we weren't going to mow anymore, it was cut it off at the throat and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Like we're on this other path.
Yeah, I think we're all kind of cut from the crazy cloth. I mean, I remember the one weekend we were in Shreveport, Louisiana. Garrett Matthews, as you know, he dropped, I think, about $2.5 million to design and build in a weekend. Same kind of thing, just cut it off. So, I mean, we're known to jump off the cliff and start to build that plane as we're going. But the interesting take that I don't necessarily have seen anybody do it intentionally, that we've been interviewing at least, is that I love the 3 simple like service offerings, or maybe some sub services underneath there, but you've actually built it out so it actually goes into each season, and you've taken some of that seasonal swing out of a seasonal business. So I think that's really interesting. If you're watching the way Matt's put this together, that really is smart. And thinking about like changes and kind of putting things together on the fly, I'm assuming this was more of a thought out process, but obviously the Blue Duck Lawn Care brand, to me at least, is new in the last 6 to 12 months, seeing it online and knowing you. So my guess is it was a complete rebrand from the original Greens brand. So if you wouldn't mind kind of talking about what was the thought process going in? Why did we do the rebranding? And I really love the branding right now and the logo and a lot of the stuff I'm seeing online. So I thought it was a pretty well played out process and really well executed. So you might kind of talk about what was the process, why were you doing it, and what were some of the outcome effects, negative or positive, with the rebrand?
Yeah. So the big reason is because people knew us as Greens Lawn Care. And Greens makes sense because it's my last name, but there's a lot of people in Indianapolis where we are that it's Greens something. Like that's the name of their business: Greenscape, Green Image, Green Vista, Green Reflections, Greens Lawn Care, like all these different names. And so when customers would tell their neighbors about us, they wouldn't always say Greens Lawn Care. Sometimes they would just lump us all together and they would say, oh, Greens Landscaping. So when that neighbor would go to Google and they would type in Greens Landscaping trying to find our information, they would have no idea who to click on because there's no Greens Landscaping in Indianapolis. And so the whole list of all the different competitors with Greens in their name would show up. So we weren't different at all from a naming standpoint. And so we would lose a lot of our market share just because people would call us the wrong thing. And we had too much competition on that name. So last year we had some extra money and I hired a branding company. That's all they do is just professional branding. And I told them our story. I mean, this was like a 2 to 3 hour long interview for them to come up with this name. They had to make sure, one of the requirements was that this brand was not used anywhere else in the United States. So we could trademark it, copyright the duck, everything. So it can't be used because eventually our goal is to be in 7 different markets around the country. That's our ultimate goal, $100 million in 7 markets. And to do that, we had to have a company that could actually make that move. But I can't move to a neighboring state if there's already a Greens Lawn Care or a Greens Landscape. So we had to get something that was super unique. And then we always had this blue duck, and the branding company was like, I don't understand what this blue duck is all about. And I told them, hey, when we set out to build this fertilization program, we wanted to be different than the market. And I had no one believes me, but I had a similar story to Adam Sandler and Billy Madison. Like when he sat down and drew a blue duck, like I had that same story in elementary school. We had this assignment. We had to draw inside the duck and like color inside the lines. And I drew mine blue, and she wouldn't put mine up on the wall with all the other kids. She said, there's no such thing as a blue duck and you get an F on the assignment. And like, that has always sat by me. And I don't know why I drew a blue duck. Like, I think it was just happened to be the crayon that I picked out. And so that just always sat with me. And when we set out, we wanted to make our mascot blue. It's like something that's not in the market. Um, it's totally different. And we want to be at a whole different level than everybody. So we started putting this on our old brand. And kids, when they would walk past our trucks, I mean, we have these vans and we have these big box trucks. And when they would walk past, they would say, Mommy, Mommy, look, blue duck, blue duck. I mean, these are like 6 to 8 foot tall blue ducks on the side of these massive vans. And it would like draw the kids in there. And I was like, man, if you can win the kid, you can win the parent. Like, so if you have to win this kid, like the parent will pay for it. That's just the same thing as Christmas lights. Like, you're not selling Christmas lights to the parents. You're selling Christmas lights to those kids. And if the kids want it bad enough, the parent will pay for it. And most people don't realize that for Christmas lights, but that's why we set out to make a different brand, so we can be super unique in the market, so we can go to different markets. But people also, the downfall is we're a super local, small company, and people see this brand and they think we're a franchise already. They're like, I don't know. This looks very franchisey. This looks very corporate. So, but I guess that's kind of where we're going.
Love it. Was it tough far as actually rewrapping the trucks, like actually indoctrinating the current clients to the new brand, or was it pretty seamless?
It was far more expensive than I ever thought, which everyone tells you. But I didn't really think about all the different costs that it was going to be. You know, I understood having to pay for the brand. That was stupid expensive. Wrapping the trucks, that was pretty expensive. But then all the ancillary stuff, like we had to buy all new polos, all new shirts. We had to buy new business cards and stationery. And we do trade shows. So a couple of weeks before the trade show, I went to go get all the trade show stuff out. Didn't even think about it. Well, it's all Green's Lawn Care stuff. And I'm like, you know, we got to go buy a whole new trade show now. So we had to buy everything for the booth all over again. Like, that was not expected. We give away these, I don't have one on my desk, but they're these little rain gauges. Round 3 for fertilization. We're the only company in our area that gives out rain gauges during round 3. That's one thing that makes us different. But I had probably still 1,000 of them that say Green's Lawn Care on them. How to buy all blue duck ones now, you know? So just little things like that I didn't know how much this was going to cost us. But I think in the long run, and also the website, that was a big kick in the teeth. Like, it looks great, but it got up really late, not because of the web people's fault. It was because the branding people got us the final everything 2 months late. So that pushed the timeline back. Our brand, since we were Green's Lawn Care, that domain had to change to Blue Duck Lawn Care. So we lost all of our domain history. And so we fell off the face of Google. March 21st is when we fell off the face of Google. So all of our leads went all the way down into the drain.
That's not the time you want to be losing leads in March, in the middle of March.
So our sales have stagnated. We grew 0 this year because our sales, our website was off the chart. And so like all the sales that we gained got us back to 0 from churn, so it's been a trying year for sure, but learn a lot along the way.
Yeah, hopefully it'll pay off for the better. I know Vitaly in our masterminds group is recently gone through a rebranding as well, and he highly suggests it. He actually suggested Simple Growth go through a rebranding, which we're considering. But I think I'm gonna take some caution after listening to you here. I got only the good stuff from Vitaly, and not necessarily some of the pitfalls of it. But you were talking, it got me thinking. You were talking about this trade show and some of the local things you're doing. There's been a massive push that I've seen it online, and not a lot of companies in our industry are pushing content on social media, video content, educational content. I know going back in the day, we both probably saw at least once, if not twice, Marcus Sheridan for the book They Ask You Answer. One of the guys that predominantly came in with some of the content. But if you don't mind talking about, Matt, what was the process and the thought of really doubling down on your content, of just organic content, not only for your brand, but it looks like you're going into local restaurants and kind of actually shedding light on other small businesses within the community?
Yeah. So let's talk about the first part, the content part, and then we'll talk about the hyper local thing that we're doing as a separate deal. Um, so yes, I was in Academy. Academy is no longer a thing, but Jonathan was super into content, and then that's why he brought Marcus Sheridan to the conferences, and you know the Marcus Sheridan story. And if you're listening and you don't know the Marcus Sheridan story, just go buy the book, look him up on YouTube. You'll figure it out pretty fast. Is answer everybody's questions online. You know, the first time that we went on vacation, it was me and my wife. We didn't have any kids at this time. We were in Destin, Florida, I believe. And it was in August. And the first day that we were there, I sent out this automation um, about aerations. And there was no documentation, nothing systematized about this stuff. And I started getting all these responses. And so I literally wasted an entire day of vacation typing back answers. I mean, multi-paragraph answers. And then about 4 hours later, it dawned on me that I kept answering the same question over and over and over. I was like, why don't I just copy and paste this thing? So at the time, Nicole goes, I'm not waiting here all day for you to do this. I'm going to the beach. Not, for me, I'm like, well, if I don't answer these questions, they're going to go hire somebody else. So you go to the beach, I'm going to answer these questions, and then hopefully tomorrow will be a better day. And so I learned from there. I was like, make a really good document, answer everybody's questions. And then that came into the video thing is how about just answer everybody's questions in a video and then put it online. And that gives you social proof that you are the expert in the area. There's not a lot of people in our area. Actually, I don't know of anybody in the area that puts out as much content as we do in our space. So then we start putting out all this content, and we have some viral videos that have over 4 million views. We have 2 videos over 1 million, a third one right now that's on its way to the million. But all those views are like, for vanity. It's just an ego boost. 4 million views has not made me a penny, because those views are all over the United States. It could be somebody in Florida that watched my video on how to do whatever. But that person in Florida can never pay me a dollar. So all those views are for naught, because at the end of the day, we make content and in turn, we want an ROI on this. And so when we did that, we set out to how could we then take all this content and make it super hyper local? And we're dealing with some stuff this year that I'm not going to mention online, but we had to make massive cuts on our P&L just to be able to weather this storm. And one of those cuts was we cut 100% of our marketing budget for the rest of the year. And so we are spending no dollars growing this company right now. And so the thought was, how can we still grow? Because it's my duty to grow this company so that I can provide better jobs for everybody. How can I still grow this company with spending $0 on marketing? And it's like, well, that's every business owner's dream, right? Like spend no money, grow the company. And so my thought was, how about we take this content and we make it super hyper local? So we have the Blue Duck brand, and then I started another brand called Indy Hoosier Matt. So it's all about Indiana. We're the Hoosiers. So it's all going to be super hyper Indianapolis and metro area stuff. So you have all these moms groups online. And the moms groups are like, oh, I took my kid to the park this week. I took my kid to this week, and, they have these big channels and you can advertise on these channels. I was like, well, that's interesting. There's not any for the dads. Like, let's start the dad one, right? So we know that our main customer is a suburban household, 2 incomes, kids. They have a pet, and the wife makes a lot of the decisions. Even though the husband might be the one calling us, the wife makes a lot of the decisions. So let's make content that could be something that would entertain these people. So we picked all the different cities I have this spreadsheet, all the different cities that we have around that we service, and what are the top 3 things in those cities to do. So in Indianapolis, we made content on going to Victory Field. It's our minor league Major League Baseball team. We went to the Indianapolis Zoo and made this fun content that we pushed out. And so we want the people who are watching this to be Indianapolis folks. Like somebody, like who's going to watch something of us go into the zoo? Well, somebody in San Diego doesn't care about our zoo. They don't care about Victory Field. But if you live in Carmel, Indiana, you probably care about that. You know, what are the best taco shops? So me and my buddy, we put out a video every Tuesday now. It's on the best tacos. It's called On the Taco Trail with Matt and Xavier. And we go to these different it's like, I'm sure you've seen Dave Portnoy's Barstool Sports, One Bite. Everybody knows the real thing. So we're doing the same thing, but for tacos, because guess what? I'm 34 years old. I know all of the moms at my age, they love tacos. Like that's what they talk about, like the big thing for them. So I'm like, let's go find the best authentic taco shops. And so the rule is you can only serve tacos on corn tortillas, meat, cilantro, and onions. And if it's like what I call a gringo taco, you have flour and lettuce and all that other bullshit, like that restaurant does not count in our taco. Like you can't be part of the taco trail. Like you got to be authentic. The last one we went to, they didn't even speak English. I couldn't even order from them. Good thing I had Xavier there because like he ordered all of our food. And so we do those. And a big thing in Indiana, which may not resonate with you, is the Hoosier tenderloin. It's these big, thick, breaded tenderloin sandwiches, and it's like the thing around here. So there's even groups on Facebook about tenderloins. So we put a poll out in some of these groups. What are the best tenderloins in Indiana? And we're going to actually make a trip around Indiana, try these tenderloins, make content around this. And we're just trying to pull local people into this page. Then I went out and found like 5 to 10 other business owners. So one's a trash can cleaning service, a painter, pressure washer, a personal chef. He's going to teach us how to make the best burger for the summer. A local meat shop, they're going to donate the food for the burger. And so we're going to make content around these. And then I can tag that other business owner in a collaborative post on social media. So then my content goes on their page and their content goes on my page. So then all of his followers sees my content and all of my followers sees him. So then we can grow both of our pages together in super relevant content. And so then that would in turn lead people to like and trust me as a personal brand. And then I'm always wearing this thing. And so that page is designed to say, it says at the top, like CEO of Blue Duck Lawn Care and Indy Christmas Light Pros. And, you know, I'm a father, a husband, blah, blah, blah also. And so we want that to then trail over to Blue Duck and turn into sales. So that's one interesting way that we're trying to turn this local branding thing into an ROI.
Wow. Mind blown right now if you're watching this. So Matt has gone in and found his ideal client avatar. I think he might be hanging out with the ladies at the bus stop. Just don't tell Nicole. But he's figuring out where they're hanging out, what they're talking about, where their pain points are. He's gone out and created joint venture partners locally with complementary businesses to actually go in and expand his reach inside there. And you're literally just providing valuable content, not specifically around your brand, but creating brand awareness. And you nailed it, kind of like Marcus talks about. They know, like, and trust you. I mean, that is unbelievable. I know not to that extent, Drew Larison with Larison Media, I think he's in Kokomo, but has a similar thing that he's doing like every Thursday or Friday in Kokomo. But we were at Cocoa Beach in Florida, nowhere near where he was at. And we were literally at the bar one night after dinner, just networking. And he had actually 2 or 3 of his local people like showed up or were like fanboys, like, Drew, is it Drew? And like, I'm like, what? He talked the next time, like, what goes on here, dude?
Yeah.
But I mean, that was like the coolest thing because he did something not as intentional, but he was still like literally being seen, you know, states away. But to be able to do that and work with complementary outdoor services or other vendors that can get those in there is,
all these people that we're partnering with they're all outdoor services, exterior vendors. And then once we produce this, then we can share email lists, you know, like, hey, send an email blast out to all your customers about these services that we do. And we'll do the same thing for you guys. You know, like That's why we have a newsletter that goes out every month. Like
Yeah.
we can put those partners on that
That's
newsletter.
awesome because a lot of our clients are like, what do we put in the newsletter? Well, we want to educate them what they should be doing yard or home, maybe a month in advance, but it's not always just about us. You're just really providing a value and you're the one expert source for that. So that's huge. Kind of diving into some of the stuff, like not only the social stuff that you're doing on the organic and paid side on your website, SEO, things like that. But looking at your website stood out to me in a very interesting way. And I've got to get your take on this because you've got these 3 core services. And as you hit these drop down menus for the pest control or the holiday lights or the different services, Matt, you've got prices on there, like ballpark based prices. Now, I know when we did that probably 15, 16 years ago with Callahan's Lawn Care in upstate New York and Rochester, the competition thought I was absolutely bananas. And they were like just blown away, but they didn't quite understand why. I'm kind of curious your take on this because this is something that we saw a little bit back in the early to late 2000s, and then it has literally disappeared. So I think you're probably one of the first websites I've seen that getting back to the basics with this. So I'm curious, what was the thought process? Why are you doing it? And I guess I probably can answer the question, but apparently you're not scared that your competition is going to see your pricing.
You know, it's kind of like employees. Like, so I'll give you this epiphany or this little nugget. When people talk about employees and should I go poach other companies' employees when I don't have any employees, my answer is always, if you're treating your employees right and you're paying them well, they have no reason to leave. And so why would they couldn't be poached. If you're taking care of them and you're paying them really well, I don't care what you offer them, they're not going to leave because that's that bond that we've created. And so even if you know my pricing, if you call my customers and say, hey, I'll do your lawn treatments for $5 less a treatment, I can almost tell you that none of our customers are going to leave. They don't buy us for our pricing. They buy us for our service, our value, and everything that we do in the community. They're buying us and they see the value in it. So like, I don't care if you take my customer list and start cold calling them. Like, I don't believe that we're going to lose hardly any of them. I mean, you might get a couple of them, but nothing significant. And so if a customer is going out and they are looking to hire a lawn care or a pest control service, they're going to get multiple quotes anyways. So if I can be super upfront and give you a roundabout price, one that's either going to tell you like, hey, I'm totally outside of the market. Like I thought this was going to be way cheaper. Or that person's going to think subliminally like, man, this company is super transparent. They're the only ones that transparently told me what this price is. So they already have a little bit of trust in me before they call everybody else. Or they say, hey, this is too expensive and they don't waste our time anyways.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's just forward thinking. I think our industry is like decades behind sometimes, the way we go about the sales process, the way we present ourselves. And I love the transparency and you hit,
don't be a
you hit
fool,
it.
like all of your competitors already know your pricing. Like I am not the only one that has a list and we call on a consistent basis to get quotes from our competitors to see where their pricing is. Like we do that. And that's a very standard practice. Now, just based on what your price is, and that's not what my price is going to be, but I want to know that I'm somewhere within the ballpark, you know?
Yeah, it makes sense. I know Debbie Sardone does something, and if you haven't heard of this, Matt, it's a good, great takeaway. Debbie's one of the heavy hitters in the cleaning industry, and she calls it surge pricing. But literally, when they're at capacity, she'll do a 10 to 15% increase over the phone when they estimate it to actually see what the market will bear. So it's really interesting how Debbie's tackled that in the home cleaning industry. A couple of our clients that saw her speak at one of our live events last year in Dallas with the Masterminds event have actually put that into place. But yeah, it's like on demand or surge pricing. But basically, when she's just about at capacity and she really can't, she's going to have to hire another cleaner. She'll do this surge pricing and they'll play 10 to 15% and really see what will the market bear at that top and bottom line. And is it really hurting their percentages? And that'll actually be a benchmark of how she raises her prices or doesn't sometimes too.
That's fascinating. And so I would definitely like to learn more about that. But the other thing that we noticed is that it was we used to have a page called pricing. Like, so if you go in the main header, there was one called pricing. And that pricing tab, I think it was the second. I mean, your homepage is always going to be your number one visited page. And the pricing page was either the second or the third. I can't remember. It was either the second or third most visited page on our website. So it was getting a ton of views. And it's just like if you get a 1-star review on Google, well, depending on how you respond to that, like a sane person is going to understand if this 1-star review is a nut job or if they have legitimate concerns. And how you respond to them, you could easily win a customer from that, right? And so if you have this pricing page and it's one of the most highly viewed pages on your website, depending on how you structure it and how the copy is on that, depends, like you can win a lot more business that way. So I think it's a no-brainer to have pricing online.
Yeah, I think it's a really smart move. And obviously knowing you're talking about what's included, what's not included, overcoming some of those sales and price objections. So you're literally in the process, not only qualifying people, you're shortening that sales cycle. And by some of the content I'm seeing that you're putting out, whether it's on the page or just through video, like you're creating that higher perceived value. So you're allowed to, you're going to be able to get away with charging that higher price. But you touched on employees there, Matt, and that brings me to the employee page here. I'm going to see if I can pull this up here on the screen here without totally screwing this up. But this really was interesting to me, the way you broke down the employees section on your website. So it literally breaks down from the field all the way to the office. But as we scroll down here, we've got some videos of social proof of the guys and girls working in the field, the office, and why people would actually want to work with you. Are you constantly hiring for positions? Because it looks like this is a static page. It's always on your website. So what's the thought of kind of going out, kind of state of the union right now? I've got varying degrees. People say that, they're fully staffed and like there's ample workers, there's nobody out there, and it's like, it's a disaster. What are your thoughts on the labor market? What has been your approach with some of the stuff on the website to get the results you're getting with the labor market?
Yeah, we're fully staffed right now, but we're always taking resumes. We're always interviewing people because you never know when you might get that one person. You're like, I got to have that person on the team. You'll figure out what to do with that person. But I think you always have to be hiring. I think and I actually want to rebuild this hiring page even more because a hiring page should so I come from the tech background. Like I worked at Xerox. So I saw a lot of that. And to me, when people think about employees and trying to recruit, there was a massive disconnect always is I just want to put an ad on Indeed and these people should just come running to work for me. Well, that time is come and gone. Like that's not how employees are. Like you have to think about the employee journey the same as you would think about a sales journey. How are you marketing to get them? You get them into the funnel and then you kind of work their way down the funnel, but you have to give them what your vision is. What's your vision? What are your values? Where are you going? How do you fit in the picture? What is the big dream? And can your dream fit inside of our dream? And if your dream can fit inside of my dream, well, then we'll be good partners. But if you can't see your dreams in life being fulfilled within the dream I have for this company, well, then you're going to be dissatisfied at some point and you're going to leave. So as a business owner, you have to dream big enough, and it's your duty to grow your company large enough that everybody within your company can have their dreams fulfilled within your company, or else you will have employee churn. And so I really want this page, even though I think it's great, it's showing, hey, this is what the job is. These are some of the things we're doing. Hey, we're growing. I want to show a lot more of that employee lifetime. Like, what's that employee journey look like? This is where you can start. This is where you can finish, and really paint that picture. When we were at Xerox, we would put out all these advertisements for employees. And one thing that I want to bring back to our industry at some point is we would have these hiring events. And so we would bring all of these people in and we would rent out, say, like a Texas Roadhouse, like a room at a Texas Roadhouse. Well, Mike, I know that you don't work for me, but you could be a great employee here. Why don't you come to Texas Roadhouse, get to know us a little bit? And so they'd be like these open houses, bring everybody to Texas Roadhouse, rent out a room, and then just start selling them on that Kool-Aid. This is where we are. This is where we're going. This is how your dreams can be fulfilled. This is how we pay. This is the benefits. And I know that you're still working for the competitor right now, but if you ever want to switch, I'm going to keep you on my short list. How's that sound? And so
sounds good. When you hired?
every we would do this once a quarter, and we would have this list of say 200 people on it, and we would continuously invite them. And so these people, when I was in the tech industry, these people would come every single time. They would bring them, their wives, their kids, everybody, and the company would pay for it, all the meals, everything. They would really do it up, have speakers and everything. And then when you got that phone call, like, hey, we got an opening for you. You ready to go? Instantly, yeah, screw this place. I'm out. I want to come work for you. And so it's like, I want to build that again at some point in our industry, is having these big recruiting like parties and like then get people to want to work here as opposed to just hoping they come through a job ad.
Man, so much to unpack there, Matt. So like that I know you've got a compressed schedule, but there's maybe one or two questions I got to get out of your head, because this is obviously we didn't talk about this ahead of time, but I love what you're doing. You're getting really clear about painting the vision. If I was to guess, you've already talked about where you're going multiple times. So you've kind of got this BHAG, as Jim Collins calls it, that big, hairy, audacious goal. What is the 3, 5, 10-year plan? But you want to get to that 100 million with multiple locations, and painting that picture. So obviously you're constantly recruiting. Something we do in both of the companies that I own here in Callahan's, we used to do it 2-3 times a week, building that virtual bench. As Jonathan, I used to always call that bench almost like a sports team. But I really, if people are watching this, Matt is really breaking down the parts of successful, not only mindset, but building a business. I'm assuming, Matt, that you're using EOS or some kind of version of that, because you're grabbing these little pieces that I love to see in a business. But I mean, literally where you're going, you've got some core values. It sounds like you're literally hiring, training, and eventually firing, or I like to say coach up or coaching out to those core values. Is there something behind the scenes that you guys are doing foundationally around this? We call it the elite methodology in the masterminds group, but EOS is almost identical. And it sounds like you've adopted some of this at least, or maybe all of it, who knows?
So we do use some of elite for sure. We've kind of stepped back a little bit with what's going on behind the scenes that I'm not going to mention on here. We had to make massive cuts. So the only people in the office right now is me and our operations manager. So we don't have the full executive team like we had last year when we had an office manager also, and we had a sales manager, and like, so we had a bigger team. So we were running those types of things. It was like a hybrid between EOS and Elite last year. And then when it just came down to me and our operations manager this year, we communicate a lot. We use WhatsApp as our internal communication channel. So we communicate a lot through there. And that weekly cadence has definitely fallen off now that it's just us two. But we're going to start getting back on it. Actually, we have our one-on-one right after this meeting here, just to keep those lines open. But yeah, this year has been kind of an anomaly with what we're dealing with behind the scenes. So that has kind of fallen off. But yeah, if you're not running some type of, hey, these are our annual priorities, this is the strategy to get there, this is how we're going to do that, these are your tasks, these are your tasks, and these are my tasks, and then we're going to meet every single week to how can I coach you through that, and then every quarter, did you achieve your goal, did you not achieve your goal? If you're not doing something like that, you're missing the boat.
Yeah, I love it. It's that clarity, and I think if people are watching this and they're just an itty bitty like itty bitty lawn care, you're maybe 100,000, 200,000. You got 1 or 2 employees. Honestly, Matt, like I think the sooner you can start with those one-on-one cadences, just even if it's 15 minutes, but literally like, hey, what are you working on? What were you working on last week? What were you working on this week? What are the roadblocks or impediments you need some help with? And hey, is there any kudos for the supporting team? I wish I had started that cadence earlier. So obviously today being Tuesday, as we're recording this, I literally, the rest of my Tuesday afternoons are one-on-ones with my leadership team. And then my leadership team has one-on-ones with their subordinates. But I think that's been a game changer, just allowing that constant communication, and allowing that team member to have a block set of time that they know that's theirs. We really, unless I'm on the road speaking at a conference, like that is their time. It does not move. And if it does move, Andrea, my assistant, literally rebooks it. But I mean, if you're watching this, and Matt, it sounds like you're getting back into that cadence, and sometimes we get out of it a little bit. But I think if you're watching this, that is just so important to have that time for your team members to get the support. But also, Matt, I'm curious your thought on it, but really what we're doing is we're setting the value and the culture of the company. And really, as the business owner, we're setting the vision, we're building the team, which you're doing, and we're delivering results, financial responsibility. And hopefully in the middle of that, we're leading with care. But after we build that culture, on the other side of that, we're creating productivity and quality, and we're aligning the two. And that's where the secret sauce that I see from the outside of what you guys are doing is you've really created that culture, but you've got some productivity, you've got accountability, and you've drive them together. And that's where those guys and girls on your team are sticking around, and you're not worried about them leaving because they know where they're going, they know where they're at. And I'm assuming on some of a regular cadence, whether it's weekly or monthly, they actually know where we're at and where we're going.
Yeah. And, the biggest thing that I found was if you're not communicating with them, they're going to come up with their own ideas of what's going on in the company. And then they become rumors. And then sometimes the rumors get so big that you just got to eliminate the people who bought into that rumor because there's no reversing them sometimes. And that's a shitty place to be. Like, it's like, hey, let's just be super honest. And at one point it was, I wanted to tell them what they wanted to hear, because I wanted to keep them happy. And now I tell them what they need to hear. And sometimes that's not what they want to hear. And sometimes it's not easy for me to deliver that, because it's a tough conversation, but those conversations have to happen. And if you're not being honest with them, then you start getting frustrated with them because you never voiced it and they were never able to make a change. And then they start getting their own ideas in their head. Am I being successful? Am I not being successful? The next year came and I didn't get a raise. Why didn't I get a raise? You never told me I wasn't doing anything wrong. Like, oh, but you didn't do this. You didn't do this. You didn't do this. You did this. Like, well, I never knew I wasn't doing those 4 things wrong because you never told me.
It almost should never be a surprise, right? Like, once you fire somebody, it should never really probably be a surprise. There should have been some of those conversations up front.
Yeah.
But I think our industry, including myself in the early days, very, very guilty of that. Like, hey, Dave, sorry, buddy, we're going to have to let you go. Just not a good fit anymore. And Dave's like, well, what did I do? It's the first time I heard about it. So it's tough, but I know you got to
not perfect by any stretch of the imagination.
None of us are.
We have a lot of our own stuff that we have to work on. But I think we do a pretty good job. And as business owners, sometimes it's really hard to see all the things that you've accomplished over time because you're always seeing all the problems that are going on, because typically the business owner is a lot of the problem solver because we're visionaries and we can see outside of the box a lot more. So you see all these problems that are persisting in the business, even though they're not like massive issues to the customer base. Like you see all these little things, like this isn't cleaned up, this isn't done right, and so you just see your business as a bunch of people and a lot of problems. But it's like sometimes you got to just sit back and reflect and be like, we've also done a lot of good stuff too.
Yeah,
like,
that's
we're a lot
great
better
advice.
than most.
Yeah, great advice, because a lot of us just, we're focused on some of the negatives, but it's amazing what we've all accomplished through this journey. So obviously I know you got a compressed schedule. Last thing I want to end on here is, Matt, I've been watching from afar your personal journey, health-wise, things you've been doing. Congrats on that. Like really making some huge strides there, brother. If you don't mind just kind of talking about kind of that work-life balance and some of the stuff you've been doing to just better yourself as an entrepreneur. Because I know through the years myself, my personal health, sleep, family life in the beginning, like totally neglected, just go. It'll get better. And a lot of us, I know, sometimes just wear that as a badge of honor. Hey, I worked up from sun up to sundown, and like your buddies, the other guys, like, well, I worked before the sun was up and I worked before the sun was down. And it's like, we drive this crazy train, but a lot of times it has some ill effects, and definitely on our work-life balance.
Oh, for
eating
sure.
habits, things like that. And I know myself, I've been getting back on the treadmill, dropped a few pounds, and set some health goals. And part of that obviously was, I think, some of the conversations we had a few months ago. So if you don't, obviously you don't have to talk if you don't want to, but I mean, I
Yeah.
just think it's been really, I think, inspirational for a lot of folks in here, that a lot of us in the SA ecosystem, not necessarily myself, but a lot of folks have gotten like really healthy. Some people have stopped drinking. I mean, it's been that core group that we hang out with has just been like transformational the last 2, 3 years. Pretty crazy.
Yeah. So, man, my number one goal for the whole year was to get my health back in order. Like, and business was number two. So I work on a blocked schedule. So I will schedule things on my calendar, but I have a block for everything. And so the very first block is gym workout. So the first thing I do in the morning is go to the gym workout. I usually roll into the office 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning. But that is number one priority. Last year, I was 370 pounds when I started. I've dropped 80 pounds already. In like 5 to 6 months, I've dropped 80 pounds.
Amazing.
And last year, 370 pounds. I'm 34 years old right now. And it would get to be like, say, noon to 2, somewhere right in there. And last year, noon to 2, and I would need a nap because I couldn't make it through the day because I was so out of shape, overweight. I mean, what we do is mentally exhausting, which I think mentally exhausting is worse than being physically exhausted sometimes. And so I was just like thinking to myself one day, I was like, how pathetic. 34 years old, and I can't even stay awake all day long. Like, that is a shame, an absolute shame. And now I have two young girls at home, and they're going to see what this loser is at home. Like, eats like an asshole, doesn't care about himself, like all these different things. I was like, you know what? All the stresses that go on in life, I was like, I'm like a walking time bomb of like a stroke, heart attack. And then we're going to leave all this mess for somebody else to clean up. I was like, that can't happen. That's not going to be me. And I talked to John DeCostmaker a couple of times. He had a massive transformation also. And I hired his coach. Not cheap, but I hired a coach because my number one priority was to get my life back in order. And so I hired the same guy that John uses, and it's been night and day difference. And now even though I'm massively overweight still, I'm 290 pounds. I'm 80 pounds down, but I got so much energy now. I could do all kinds of shit now. And I walk, but it takes a lot from the significant other to allow you to do this stuff. Sometimes at night I'll get home and it'll be 6 o'clock at night and it's busy, dinner time, got to get the kids bathed and showered and or whatever, and PJs and bedtime. And that's a whole ordeal in itself. And sometimes I'm like, look, Nicole, I need to walk for an hour and 45 minutes to get my steps in. She's like, go for it. I'll take care of it. Like I'll take care of that. The girls, you go get your steps in. So like she is super supportive of me being able to, but I walk about 7 miles a day, 6 to 7 miles a day I walk. And that takes a lot of dedication. So if this call was not like being streamed to online, like Monday, I had a call with a lawyer and I was like, look, man, I know it's Zoom, but I'm walking. So if you don't like that, then so be it. But I'm walking. I'm paying you, so I'm going to be walking. All of my phone calls I take and I go walk. Put my AirPods in and I'm walking around the complex that our office is in, just to get those steps.
It's
And
awesome, man.
being able to think more clear, have more energy, man, it is night and day in difference in your business. And I think I'm going to be speaking at SA this year, and I almost want to speak about that also. Is like how important it is to get your life back in order so then you can make better decisions for your business, because your business is not about you. Like, that is the selfish thing to think about, is like your business is not about Mike Callahan. It's about all those people that you impact and all of their families. And so for me, if I think about it, I'm not going to care about my health. Now I'm telling all the other people that my decisions impact, that their families don't matter either. Because if I can't make a good decision, then I'm affecting my operations manager's family. Everyone else's family is affected by that. So like, I think it's now my duty to get myself in shape so I can make better decisions for them.
Love it, brother. Well, thank you for joining us. I'm hoping to see you at the SA conference, whether it's in person or remote, no idea yet. But whenever that happens, I'm hoping to see you live on stage telling that story. So I'm going to hold you to it. I think you definitely need to weave that in there at some point of it. But appreciate you, Matt, brother. Hope to see you in person again. And if not, we'll see you on stage telling that story and hopefully inspiring others like you've inspired a lot of other people in our ecosystem. So until next week, SG Weekly Talk Show, we'll see you back here. And make sure you check us out on all the major podcast channels if you're on the go like Matt walking around. All right.